Welcome in to another episode of the Casual GM podcast. I am your host, Drew, joined as always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Drew. How about yourself?
I round-tripped it up to Lansing today for a 8-hour training session for my job, and I am exhausted.
You know who else is exhausted?
Who's that?
Brad Holmes. He's got to be. He has been wheeling and dealing, buddy.
Tip of the hat for that one, sir. Well done. Yeah, so let's jump right into stuff from around the NFL, right? That's an excellent way to start. So,
well, you know what? Actually, first, I'm gonna interrupt you because we want to welcome Bo Gagrius. Bo Gagrius. He subbed. He was number 62. We're actually up to 66 now. We are climbing, although 63, 4, 5, and 6 didn't share their names, so we can't give them a shout out. So
we do what we can for the people that share their names on their
YouTube channels. So welcome, Bo, and now we'll get to the good stuff.
Super Bowl or bust. Interesting. Okay.
I mean, that's always the goal, right? Super Bowl or bust.
Yes, that is true. I mean, so to me, there are nice seasons that don't count. There are bad seasons that you forget about, and then there's the seasons that matter, which is the ones that you win the Super Bowl. So,
we haven't had a season.
We haven't had a season. We haven't had a good season yet. We're gonna get there, but because I'm sure that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are not subscribing, but like huddled around their computer in what is it, Allen Park or whatever, just taking notes on everything that we say. That would be just like
we can't prove that doesn't happen,
right?
We're just throwing it out there. We can't prove that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you can't prove it doesn't, I mean that basically means it does, right? So
by the way, I've got a rock that repels lions if you would like to buy it from me. I know this because I've had the rock near me and I've never seen a lion. So you can't prove that it doesn't.
I see what you're doing.
Yes, right. It was a poor effort, but that's all I got.
Let's leave the comedy to me. Yes. And you just sit there and be pretty, okay? So
yeah, I can't help
this friendship works. So
that works. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about some news and notes from around the NFL / Detroit, mostly Detroit. Lions made another splash in free agency. They signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles to a 1-year, $6.5 million contract that can be valued up to $8 million. Basically, everything that I've heard about that signing from every source that I've heard it from was great value, great player, great fit. So hard to imagine it not working out. We have a bit of a camp battle, I think, developing when it comes to the Lions secondary now. So both Tracy Walker and Emmanuel Mosley are recovering from their respective injuries. And by all accounts, they'll both be ready at some point before the season starts. So you have signed Cameron Sutton. He is the only secondary player under contract beyond this year outside of Kirby Joseph. And I suppose Tracy Walker, even though his contract falls way off and you could cut him if you wanted. So, but he's basically signed 2 more years, this year and next year. But Emmanuel Mosley is on a 1-year deal. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is on a 1-year deal. And effectively, Jeff Okudah is on a 1-year deal. So, well, okay, Chase Lucas, but come on. I mean, let's be real about who Chase Lucas is, okay? I mean, he is a special teamer with upside in an emergency. But yes, I take your point. Like, in a pinch, he could very well play in the secondary for them. So, I mean, you might as well throw Melifonwu in there as well, right? Wouldn't count on them, but they're there. So, my question is, I would say that if everybody comes into the season healthy, the starting spots in the secondary are as follows: Kirby Joseph and Tracy Walker at the safety spots, Cam Sutton, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the slot. Who's playing the other outside corner position? Because it's either your fourth-year corner that you have on a rookie contract, or it's Emmanuel Mosley, the guy that you signed to a one-year deal. So who is it? Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Mosley wins the job. I think that would be a pretty big indictment of Jeff Okudah. Also, after the draft, I expect that pretty closely, pretty soon after the draft, I think that we'll get some kind of yay or nay on Jeff Okudah's fifth-year option.
Yeah.
But man,
I think it's got to be like by May 1st, right?
I think that's the right date. But at this point, wouldn't you just be shocked if they picked up his contract? If you can go out and sign Emmanuel Mosley for 1 year, what is he getting? $6 million, something like that, $8 million, and you have to pick up Jeff's fifth year, which is 11.5. Wouldn't you just go into free agency and get another 1 year corner, or draft somebody? I mean, I think this is it for Jeff.
I think it's one of those things where we have to figure that out even before camp, but you really need camp and you really need the season to know, right? So my guess is they don't pick it up. And if he starts balling out during the season, then I think they extend him mid-season, keep the cap number down, all that kind of stuff. But if he gets hurt or just does not play like a number 1, number 2 cornerback, then I think they say, hey, thank you for the 4 years and good luck. Have fun.
Yeah, that has all the markings of like could this be a potential problem? Like, could we be seeing him be like, hey, trade me? If he gets beat out for that spot, like, I don't know that he has any value, but
I don't think he's got value. I think cornerbacks with potential always have some value. It's kind of like your quarterback, right? He's not gonna have the same value as a quarterback down the road, but I think we could probably get a third or a fourth for him. Which is unfortunate because we spent a number 3 overall.
Right. So anyways, there's some other news. Apparently, Charles Harris and Romeo Okwara took pay cuts, not restructures. Like, I've been all over the internet saying that they took restructures because
they restructured it. And you said, you don't have to pay me as much because I want a job.
Well, I mean, they added a void year to Okwara's contract. I assume it was a restructure, like, he has a void year in 24 now. So, I thought that was a restructure, but people are out here that I trust are like, no, he just took a pay cut. And I'm like, why? Why would you take a pay cut it just doesn't make any sense. Like, he was going to make 14.5. He gave back $9 million. I don't understand. He's finally valued appropriately. I think that he's probably worth 5 and change, but the void year existed before this. From what? When they signed into the extension?
Yeah, I think so. I was looking at the
so that's 2 years old
after.
Huh. Fucking ASICs over here just dropping knowledge, huh?
Well, we are lucky to have people in the chat almost as attractive and smart as we are.
We don't know how attractive. We don't know how attractive they are. There's no way to assess that. ASICs because you know them in real life.
Yeah.
But Joey, Don, Mark, who knows? Steve.
This is not how you suck up, Drew.
They could be Greek. They could be Greek statues, or they could be the things that live under bridges. We don't know. Look at me. I have a face for radio, but yet somehow I'm on, a visual medium. Mark says he's gorgeous. I like the confidence. That helps a lot.
Yep.
So that's what I said. There's no way that he just flat out took a pay cut, but that's what I've been told. It's like he's just took a pay cut. And I'm like, you're telling me my boss comes to me and says, hey, Drew, give back money. I'd be like, no, I'm not giving back.
Or we fire you.
Well, but you can go get another job anyways. Like you gave back $9 million to stay on the team. Like I don't understand it at all.
It's not like he wouldn't get another contract either.
Right. Like someone would give him a chance.
Yeah. Even if it's at the same, maybe he just was afraid that the money that he would get on the open market wouldn't be as much as the discount that he's giving Detroit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm happy to have the cap space. Anybody that watches the podcast knows I love cap space. But very odd from both of them.
Yeah.
What else? Who else did they pick up?
Our kicker. We restructured.
We re-signed Badgley, and I think we restructured Jack Fox, our punter.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was the punter that we re-signed the kicker, restructured the punter.
Yeah. So things are going well. So we don't want that. But like, if I'm looking at overthecap.com right now.
Oh, David Montgomery. Yep.
As of right now, David Montgomery. Right now, the Lions have the 7th most cap space in the league. And I mean, who are we? Chark is still an option, right? We could re-sign Chark. I think the longer this goes on, the cheaper he gets, which is excellent for the kind of player that he is. I don't want to pay him $10 million. I don't want to pay anybody anything, right? Unless they're great. But like, it would be awesome if he came back for less than $10 million a year, which I think is starting to become promising. And like they have as much cap space now as when free agency started. So I mean, like, as far as we
were 10th at the start, right?
Yeah,
and now we're 7th most.
Exactly. And so like, assuming they sign Chark, I mean, they're probably going to have to do something with Vitai's contract to make sure that they can pay Chark. I guess he would not cost much in the first year of the extension, but Mark, they do that so that you can't just sit there and click 1,000 times on your own stuff. So,
but we appreciate the efforts.
Yeah, circumventing the system, like make a bunch of accounts and like from all of those, right? There are ways, but like right now they've got enough money to like re-sign Chark, pay for their rookie class, pay for their practice squad, and go into the season with like some wiggle money, wiggle room money. So it's gonna be great until Carr signs a wide receiver.
Carolina, because well, that's true.
Who else are they going to sign? Who's left on the market? Odell.
So there was an interesting, and I don't remember which Facebook group it is in because I'm in a bunch of Lions Facebook groups. But one of the questions they had asked was, of the remaining free agents, and they listed, I think, Odell, Chark, Bobby Wagner. I forget there was a fourth one. They said, well, like, who should we go after? And I'm like, I'm not sure we actually have enough cap room to go after some of those guys. But if it was me and cap was no option, I'd go for Bobby Wagner out of that group, just hands down.
Yeah, he'd be I like Bobby Wagner, fine. Yeah. I mean, like, just everything with me is based upon cost. Like, you have, if you want to add Bobby Wagner, cool, just don't overpay for him,
right?
Like, that's my whole thing. So,
I mean, the dude's future Hall of Famer, and he still has gas in the tank. So let's drive him.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as we can afford it, right? So,
right.
That's the big thing. And I'm not sure what he's commanding or what he's asking for. I haven't seen any notes about that. I'm surprised he's lasted this long, to be honest, on the open market.
So one thing about this offseason that I think is interesting is that this feels very much like an offseason where the NFL is pushing back on contracts. Like, there's still been a lot of money that's been handed out, but like, you're not seeing guys like, I don't know that I can name a contract that was 4 years or longer. Other than the idiotic quarterback, David, not Mills, Derek
Jones.
Carr?
No, Jones. Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
4 years, $160 million.
Sure. So
there's a couple stupid things out there, but most of them are short term.
Yeah. It certainly feels like the NFL is moving closer to like quicker, smaller, shorter contracts, and like I was looking at the Lions roster and contracts today, and like, I mean, like they're going to be turning over the roster a lot just to keep guys on the team. Like I think that draft picks are going to become even more valuable in the near future, because it's like if you sign, let's say Cameron Sutton to a 3-year deal, like if you draft a running back in the second round or a cornerback in the second round, he's on a 4-year deal. I mean, like it's just the best way to get people on your team now in the long term as well. So
yeah, Steve-O mentions 5-year contracts usually end up as a lot of dead money, and GMs are starting to learn not to do them. I think that's probably the case. And I think the players recognize that shorter contracts means I get back into free agency when, every year somebody resets the market in a position. And if I take a 3-year contract, that by the time I'm back on the free agency market, that's been reset and I'm going to make bank. But if I sign a longer term one now, I'm likely missing out on some of that money. So I think they're betting on their own longevity and the fact that the price is going to continue to go up faster than if they signed a longer term one now. That's kind of the way I've been thinking about some of the shorter term deals that have been going around.
Let me check for you here, Detroit. Google.
Oh, on the he asked, when is the collective bargaining agreement up with the NFL and the Players Association?
Expiration. Here we go. Through 2030.
Through 2030. So 7 more years. They must have re-upped it then, right?
The current active agreement was ratified in 2020 and extends through 2030. So, which includes changes to league revenue distribution, increases player benefits and health and safety improvements, increasing the season to 17 games, and increasing active roster and practice squad limits. So, it sounds like got signed in 2011. They reevaluated it in 2020 with some stuff they wanted to do, mainly I think the 17th game, ratified that, and then put a new expiration date on it. So we're in this for at least the next 7 years. So,
and as we're talking about resetting markets, ASIC says, LOL, article today said Sewell's going to be able to buy American Samoa when he resigns, and ASIC's cried.
So, yeah.
It's one of the things that we're kind of talking about today, right? Is 5th-year contracts and how we do it, when we don't do it. And I think that goes right into what ASIC says there about Sewell, right? Because he's coming up soon.
Yeah, so I guess I can transition to there. So we are going to be discussing 5th-year options and basically, are they good or not, right? So like, and the answer is they're good for some positions. I think the answer effectively is they're good for the same position the franchise tag is good for. So we're going to take a look at some of them tonight. But so I did want to touch on what ASIC said here. I saw that same article. There's a couple of things that I think are working in Sewell's favor and then working against Sewell. Things in his favor. Laramie Tunsil just helped redefine the market, right? And not that I think that these guys will necessarily reset the market, but if you're looking at guys like Tristan Wirfs, Christian Darrisaw, who else? Maybe Jonah Williams, depending on how desperate whatever team that signs him is. That kind of stuff. The market for tackles could go up. However, and A6 makes this point, he's a right tackle, right? Now, that does mean that he would make less, but it's not so much less that it's really significant. And if he gets near the top of, if he gets more than, I think Ryan Ramczyk is right near the top of the right tackle market right now at $19 million a year. Let's assume that with the cap going up, other re-signings, let's assume that's something like $22 or $23 million a year for your right tackle. Now, the other thing to consider is if you were Penei Sewell, depending on what they do with Taylor Decker, he's only got 2 years left on his deal. Penei's extension could come the year before you do anything with Decker, or right at the same time that Decker might transition to be away from the team, or maybe they just switch roles. But like, if they tell Penei Sewell that he's going to be their future left tackle, he's going to be like $4 to $5 million a year more expensive. So let's talk about 5th-year options, because that's where he stands right now. Like, should you use a 5th-year option on Penei Sewell next season? Okay, so I'll share my screen here.
Well, first let's talk about what a 5th-year option is.
Great. So you get
Who
picked,
gets them?
You get picked in the first round, and because you were a first-round pick, your contract comes with a 5th-year option. So a 5th-year option is a cheaper way. It's like a cheap franchise tag, to be honest. So like, it's not tied to your draft position. It's tied to how you're designated by what position you play on the field. So if you take a quarterback at number 32, like a Lamar Jackson, your tag is the quarterback transition and franchise tag. So it doesn't matter that you were taken at 1 or 32. What matters is that you're a quarterback. So we're going to take a look, but that's about it. Like, it's just a perk of being a first-round pick.
It is, but well, it's a perk for the team also, right? The team gets that perk. Well, they get the. I think so, because like, they get the option to do this. The player doesn't go, hey, do this 5th-year option, because maybe they dropped off, they didn't play as well as they had hoped, and they want more money. They don't have to go out to test free agency and be disappointed.
Sure.
So it's really up to I think it's a bonus for the team, right? Because they get the choice. The team gets the choice, not the player.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. But so I'm going to share my screen here, I guess, and we'll take a look. So Steve makes a point, like, we don't need to explain 5th years to this crew.
That's probably true.
Maybe that's true, but it's also for people who watch this later, and it's so that we can segue into the other stuff we have planned. So just, you're going to have to deal. So let's see here.
Just going to have to deal. I love it.
You're just going to have to deal with it. So this is, once again, Over the Cap. It's a great resource. I recommend that you guys check it out if you haven't already. Okay, so this is the 2020 first-round class. Do I need to make this bigger, Mike?
I can see it fine, but I don't think anybody would be upset if you did.
All right, so there. Now it's a little bit bigger. Did you see it? Did it get any bigger?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Just screwing with you, because that's also what friends do.
Mike, try and be a little professional. We're trying to put on a program here. So
here I am without my tie.
Exactly. So here we are, 2020 first round class. These are the folks that are going to have their options determined at some point in this season. So we're just going to take a look at like what it is. So like, their first round picks. This is the order that they were picked in. Notice that Miami has a draft pick on here somewhere. They didn't fritter it away by being cheaters. So there's 3 things that matter when it comes to what your option is going to cost you. The basic option is, like, and we'll use Jeff Okuda. It's this first column, and that is dependent upon, I think, what your, how does this end up becoming determined? But so effectively, that is what Jeff would cost if we picked up his 5th-year option. So the way that it increases is 70, playtime. These players are eligible for 5th-year base salary calculated from the average of the 3rd highest to the 20th highest salaries at their position group over the past 5 seasons. So they exclude the number 1 and number 2 guys, provided their snap counts are over their first 3 seasons meet one of the following criteria: 75% in the greater of two of the first 3 seasons. So sorry, Jeff. Average of 75% or greater over all 3 seasons. Once again, sorry, Jeff. 50% or greater over all 3 seasons. Nope, he doesn't meet any of those times because he lost almost one whole year. Okay, so Jeff is cheap. Let's talk. So he misses this playtime bonus. That would have been another $800,000. Has Jeff made the Pro Bowl? He has not. that would have made it 15-7. And if he had made multiple Pro Bowls, or I believe one All-Pro team, it would have been 18-1. Now, it's important to understand that when we are talking about Pro Bowls, we are talking about original ballots, not alternates. So yes. Tyler Huntley, if he was on his rookie deal, made the Pro Bowl this last year, he does not get bumped up to the QB 1 Pro Bowl number. Sorry. So, and you'll notice Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, exactly the same tender, despite their pick difference. So is this a good deal? I would argue only for certain positions. So what positions would it be a good deal for? Luckily, tackle is one of them, because the tackle tender, here it is, O-line. You see it, Mike?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the tackle tender here is $18.2 million. Well, and it's like that because they lump all linemen together for the purposes of determining what this tag is worth. So centers, guards, right tackles all bring down the overall value of this particular tag. So when we get to the point this time next year to make it worth have it to be the best deal that we could possibly get for Penei Sewell, we need him to not make the Pro Bowl on the original ballot. He can be an alternate. That's great, like he was last year. But then it would be appropriate, I think, to pick up his 5th-year option, because you're going to save a lot of money. You're going to save between $4 and $6 million bucks, a year on that one contract, that now 5th year on his rookie deal. And so basically the other places it's appropriate to use the tag: running back, tight end, safety, maybe a corner, probably not a corner. But basically it's the bottom of the franchise tag group, and you don't want to draft those guys in the first round anyways. Stop it, Joey.
So ASICS actually asked a good question. Any thought to skipping the 5th-year option, just re-signing him now with the threat if the 5th-year option is to keep the price down?
I think that's a great idea. So here's why, right? When it comes to re-signing a player, I don't know what situation could occur where you want to wait, right? Like Dak Prescott.
Just injuries.
Dak Prescott.
Literally it.
Well, I mean, you probably wouldn't re-sign him, right? I mean, so if you know you're going to re-sign a guy, you know what you did. If you know you're going to re-sign a guy, like Dallas knew they were going to re-sign Prescott, you should be first in line to re-sign your player, because it keeps the APY per year down. So what they did, however, was dick around and play chicken a little bit, because reasons, I don't know. And they ended up having to pay him a lot more, because I think 2 quarterbacks got their extensions before
the market reset, essentially.
Right, before Dak got his. And then the Dallas was like, well, now we have to pay what the market dictates if we're going to want to re-sign him. Yeah. So ASICS, I think, has hit the nail on the head here. If you happen to have a 5th-year option on a tackle, tight end, safety, or running back, you should exercise it, because their tags are low per their position groups. But outside of that, I think that you should probably do what ASIC says, which is to treat them like a 4-year deal and extend them in their 4th year.
So do you know if say it's a quarterback and they're going into their 4th year, you're deciding whether you want to do a 5th-year option. You're like, I really want this guy long term because Patrick Mahomes, right, or whatever. Right. Is that extension after the 4th year, or is it after the 5th year? In other words, are they getting the 5th year? If they extend on that rookie contract, say a 4-year extension like Daniel Jones just got, although I don't think he was a first rounder, so he wouldn't have gotten the 5th year.
He was the 6th overall pick.
Oh shit, that's right. You're right. Yeah. God, that's ridiculous too. So was he on his 5th-year option already?
No. So
Okay.
I don't believe so. I would have to go and check, but I think he
Got 6th overall.
I think they didn't pick up his. Well, maybe he was on his 5th year because they did trade up for him.
did trade up for him. Yeah.
But let's use a different example. A player that I know. So like Penei Sewell, if at some point during his 4th season, so next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Lions want to extend him, the extension takes place after the deal that he's currently on. It's extended. So
right.
So it would kick in his 5th year. Yeah.
So I wonder then if the strategy is for the ones where the 5th year option is actually a cap savings, do you extend them, or do you pick up that option, work on an extension, and add that extension after the 5th year? Then, so now you've got 5th year that's cheaper, and you're extending them.
There's
spreading shit out over even more years because you've just added the 5th year, right?
There's one other caveat with the 5th year. It's fully guaranteed.
Okay.
So
I mean, that's fine. You want him long term anyway, right? So,
well, I mean, if you wanted to save money in the 5th year that he's on the team, you would rather extend him because then you can play with that 5th year number. But if you hit the 5th year and it's like, oh, you're going to cost us $32 million that we can't wiggle out of, then and that
rather extend you for $45 million, but only have to pay 12 somehow, right? With the signing bonuses being spread out and all that stuff.
And what we have seen this offseason is even Deshaun Watson's contract, which was a unicorn of a contract, right? Like we've seen the NFL push back against what he got from Cleveland because they're not going to give it to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how the NFL is saying one and done. We're not doing that all the time now. Sorry. We know you're probably quote unquote worth that, but we can't continue to do this. So I remember. Oh, so they restructured his deal, right? So his deal was a 5-year deal, $1 million cap hit in the first year because he was suspended, and then 45 for the next 4 years. Well, they restructured his deal this offseason, freed up $36 million in cap, and they put a void year on the back of his deal. I mean, they're going to restructure it next year too, just so they have cap space. But they are going to have an ungodly cap hit at some point, or they're going to be paying him a 10-year contract for 5 years worth of service. So, the Bobby Bonilla
and he didn't even play well, which is
the great. Bobby Bonilla contract is the greatest contract in sports history. I mean, every year SportsCenter does something that it's it's Bobby Bonilla Day, where the Mets give Bobby Bonilla $1.7 million. He retired 13 years ago or whatever it is. What was it? He got something.
Oh, it's something.
He got $2 million a year for Bobby 30 Bonilla. Years or some ridiculous number. It's a great contract.
Bobby Bonilla at $1.19 million.
Okay, I'm in. I'll pay the taxes
on each years.
Okay.
The year will pay you until 2035. With Bobby Bonilla, who is currently 59 years old, will be 72 when the payments end. That's.
We'll have a whole new CBA in the NFL. God, 2035.
2035.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Hey, why not? Right? It's like an annuity, right? I got paid $1 million a year annuity.
Jesus Christ. That's amazing. So, congratulations, Bobby Bonilla. We all hope to be you one day.
Right.
But yeah, so that's our news and notes around the league and our 5th year option talk. So our 5th year option's good. I would say no, except in the most extreme circumstances. I will say that tackles are the one position group that you almost need to draft in the first round because you just don't see tackles make it typically outside of the first round becoming market setting guys.
Yeah.
So the 5th year option on a tackle is probably the single greatest resource that you could have for that position group.
Yeah.
So like you're virtually required to have a first round pick invested in the position, and then you have just about the cheapest franchise tag for that spot. So,
well, that kind of actually lets us kind of roll into the next chunk of what we want to talk about, which is the rise of the slot cornerback.
For Joey, after he gave
Joey,
me all that shit, now we're going to do the thing that he wanted me to do.
Well, I didn't know he was going to give you shit. Otherwise, I would have teased it, and then I was going to pull it right back.
All right.
But but speaking of Jeff Okudah, fifth-year contracts, and where he is going to end up, playing. Is he going to end up being a slot corner? Is he going to end up being, on the outside? Like, where's he going to go? And if he is going to go on the inside and start doing the slot stuff, like, what is his competition? What does that position look like? With the way that the NFL is going, we kind of talked a little bit about that earlier offline here, and you are definitely more like in tuned to how some of that goes. So I guess tell me your thoughts on the slot cornerback and the types of people, the types of players that are taking those positions.
Okay, so slot cornerback became a starting position largely because the spread offense came to the NFL, right? So like the NFL used to be quite narrow. And the running game was, you used to see backs like you're going to get run 25, 30 times a game, the bell cow era, right?
Yep.
And people had, if you had the best version of that thing, then you were a great team. Like if your offensive line was great and you had a great running back, Adrian Peterson, comes to mind, that kind of thing. Like you were hard to stop. Sure, Barry Sanders, even though we went to the run and shoot with him, that makes a lot of sense. But
Emmitt Smith? Yeah, shit.
Emmitt Smith, yeah. Arizona Cardinal, great. But what happened was someone in college football and probably at high school football determined that, well, we can't match up if you decide you want to run us up right up the middle. So we're going to spread you out wide. That's the only other direction that we can go. And we'll put 3-4 wide receivers out there. Okay. So that makes its way to college. That makes its way to the NFL. We see different variations of the spread offense. The NFL is always evolving. So what does that mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means that you put another wide receiver on the field. Okay. So you know what? As we have learned, from like New England for like the last 20 years, if you put a slot corner on a linebacker, or not a slot corner. If you put a slot wide receiver on a linebacker, they're going to eat them up. That's how Amon-Ra St. Brown has made his living in the NFL so far, is he destroys linebackers in coverage.
Yep. Cooper Kupp, same way.
Yeah, exactly. So how does the defense respond, right? The defense is always in that state of like perpetually having to respond and be reactive, right? Whether it's on the field or in philosophy. So what happens is we take the strong side linebacker off the field largely because the middle linebacker and the weak side linebacker are typically, more nimble and able to cover like a tight end or a running back out of the backfield. And your strong side linebacker effectively becomes your slot cornerback. Okay, then we start to see the rise of the hybrid players, right? So these guys, maybe they played safety in college, but they're giant safeties. Or maybe they're very, very fast linebackers, like DeMarvion Overshown to me fits this bill, right? Like I've heard people in draft media or whatever say that like they could see Overshown playing safety in the NFL. Like that's how he bridges those two positions, right? Yeah, because he's so athletic. Trenton Simpson, Clemson, another guy that like covered people in the slot for Clemson during this last season. So what we see now are like these hybrid players, Isaiah Simmons, Hamilton. Thank you. We see them getting drafted as a position, right? Like they were both basically safeties. Their designation coming out of college was safety, but they play that, strong side linebacker area, slot corner, maybe a safety. And they're like, you have like a little triangle on the defense. that you see these guys occupying. And like Kyle Hamilton this last year is a great example, because you started him off as like a deep safety. It wasn't going as well. He had some good games. He had some bad games. But you move him to the slot, you trade for Roquan Smith, you move Patrick Queen over, and now you basically have 3 ultra athletic guys in the middle of your defense that can cover and run with anybody that's out there. And then his PFF grade skyrockets the last half of the year. So that's what, I mean, to me, when Joey asked the question, like the rise of the slot cornerback, to me, it's the fact that the spread offense came to the NFL, devalued the linebacker position, and now both athletically on offense and defense, both sides of the ball want people that can match up, right? Because you don't know what you're going to get from week to week. There's too much diversity in like the philosophy and like the player makeup of the rosters that you're going to go up against to have a stagnant, one philosophy kind of approach to defending or, getting a good mismatch like in Amon-Ra St. Brown on the offensive side of the ball. So now we are seeing effectively either large corners, fast cornerbacks, or smaller quote unquote safeties filling that slot corner position, and so the one in this draft that everybody's talking about in the first round is Brian Branch. Like he's listed as a safety. He played slot corner at Alabama, and like he can do multiple things for you in multiple alignments. And so that kind of defensive versatility. Oh, and he tackles like a demon, by the way. So like that kind of like defensive.
So does my puppy,
right? Yeah. Rosie. So is just really highly prized right now in the NFL. And like nickel is effectively the base defense of the NFL. What about Simmons? He's a slot corner.
Yeah. Basically, he falls into that same category.
Yeah. I mean, like, slot DB is quickly becoming more important than outside CBs. Yeah. I mean, like, if you think about that, that rings really true, because like what you see, and we were talking about this offline a little bit earlier today as well. The guys that you are most worried about damaging you are doing it in the middle of the field where they have a matchup. And so you see guys like CeeDee Lamb, he plays in the slot. Cooper Kupp plays in the slot. Amon-Ra St. Brown plays in the slot. And like, it's not unusual to see bigger X wide receivers move into the slot off motion or anything else so that they can find a matchup that they like and then get that guy in either in space or in a matchup that gives them some kind of advantage.
Yep.
So,
and if you think about the top tight ends, your Travis Kelce's act as a slot receiver, right? I mean, they're not a typical tight end. They're essentially a big slot receiver that can also block and has great hands and usually bigger than half the guys that are trying to tackle him. So he just pops in, gets open in the middle of the field, while Tyreek Hill or whoever, after they got rid of Tyreek, like they stretch it. Yeah, it's wide receiver by committee. But like Sky Moore from Western, but like they stretch the field, and he just like, all right, the middle's open, so I'm just going to take that. I'm going to go in, do an inside post, catch the ball because I'm bigger than the people that are around me now, and then I'm going to keep running because for whatever reason you forgot that I exist.
7 yards, no problem, right? So it's like, and that's why passing has become the preeminent play call in the NFL, because like there was some stat that was like the average run in the NFL is something like 3.2 yards or something. And like the average pass play in the NFL is like 3.6 yards. So like, even if you go incompletion, completion, it's still better than a running play.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you still need to convert on third down or whatever, but like, you
don't. We proved that last year. You just have to convert on fourth down.
Well, I mean, and the league is really moving toward that. I mean, so it's like, I think that the advent of going for it on fourth down, you're going to see that continue to stretch into like more situations that are like, ooh, they're going for it on their own 35, 4th and 4. I think we're going to see a lot more of those situations than we will before everyone realizes, okay, let's bring that back down to like a more feasible mathematic happy
Well, I
place.
think the advent or the increase in analytics in general is what's driving some of that.
Oh, 100%.
You're looking at the numbers going, why are we not going for it? It's if we punt it, the odds are it's going to end up in the end zone. They're going to get it back at the 20, which means they only gained X number of yards. We might as well just go for it because we're not losing much. It's like one first down and they're back to here anyway. So just let's go for it and see if we can get it. If we get it, we are just that much more likely to score.
Yeah, you're netting 11 yards or whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you'll see more. I think you've seen more of that with the analytics that the NFL has started to adopt, and then you'll continue to see that on things like fourth downs, going for it, going for two. All right, score the first touchdown of the game. I'm going for two. Well, why? You don't need to get further. But like if our team, our offense is getting conversions at a 55% rate, I'm just better off than kicking.
Right.
Even if I miss every other one, because I'm going to, like, at some point, I'm going to have more than that every other one. Right. I'm going to get two in a row sometimes. So I think you're going to see a lot of those kind of things, all because of the analytics that are being adopted, which is kind of what we do, which is the best part. Because it's not just us. We're not just like, oh, let's take a look at some numbers and make them matter. But the NFL is saying these numbers matter as well.
Speaking of numbers mattering, would you like to move on to our last segment, Mike?
Let's do it. The running backs.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Let's talk running backs. So in episode 43, just a couple weeks ago, episode 43, the running backs episode, we took a look at all of the first round running backs, when they were taken, average picks, or number of games missed, all that kind of stuff. And somebody, was it Joey again? Or
it was your Arizona guy.
Oh, yeah. It was Luke. He was asking about, what about the starting running backs in the NFL? How many of them were drafted in the first round? When were they drafted? Are they on the same team? So we kind of did another kind of a addendum here to the running back episode. And can you guys see that okay?
Boy, you should make it bigger.
If I make it bigger, you're not going to see everything. But let's see what I can do here. All right. So is this better?
Fine. That's fine.
All right. I'm glad that it's fine. So we've got all the NFL teams here, and they're starting running backs for last year. We do have Swift there because he was supposed to be our starter, but he ended up kind of getting hurt, and it was really a by committee thing. So I did throw Jamal's information in there. But if you take a look at the NFL, you only have, and I'll scroll down a little bit because I zoom in too far. Of the 32 starting running backs, 7 of them were first rounders, 13 were second rounders, 5 were third rounders, and 7 were fourth or later, with 2 of them actually being undrafted free agents.
Yeah, Mostert and Eckler.
And when I did the math here, on average, it was basically third round. When you look at the numbers divided by 32 kind of thing, the round was right basically at the third round. When you look at the actual pick number, it was pick 76 on average for your starting running back, which was the equivalent to round 3, pick 16. So you're like on average, the average NFL running back that's the starter for a team is a third rounder.
One second. If each round is 32 picks long and it goes 32, 64, 76, shouldn't that be the 12th pick in the third round? 76 minus 64 is 12.
When I looked at the
it's right around the middle of the third round, right?
Yeah. Are there second round comp picks, or is third?
There are not.
As high as you go. I think I must have miscounted. I was doing it over lunch. So yeah, we'll call it round 3, pick 12.
Mm-hmm.
Good catch, Drew. But essentially a mid third round is the average running back. The other thing that I did was I took a look at, I was looking at the draft year as well. And if you look at something like the first round running backs, Najee Harris was actually 2021. Travis Etienne was 2021. But most of the other first round ones are several years ago. Josh Jacobs was in 2019. Zeke was in 2016. Saquon, 2018. Leonard Fournette back in 2017. Christian McCaffrey back in 2017. What that tells me is the draftees the last couple years, and when you look at the starting running backs, Buffalo drafted 2022, Jets 2022, Patriots 2021. Like most of these guys are in the first 3 years of their rookie deal, and most of them are not in the first round. They're second round, fourth. I put eighth because he was actually an undrafted free agent. So there's only 7 rounds in the NFL draft. So I would say he was essentially the first pick of the of outside of the draft. So I gave him that number just to try to make some math work there.
Well, there really are 8 rounds in the draft. I mean, like, there's 7 rounds of 32 picks, and then there are a bunch of comp picks that are assigned. So it's effectively 8 rounds.
Yeah. So I put him as the first, like there were 256 picks in the draft that year. And I put him at 257 because he was not in the draft.
Sure.
But yeah, like we're not seeing starters that are older than 3-4 years in most cases. You get a couple of them. You got your McCaffreys and Leonard Fournettes, Donta Foreman. Like some of those guys have been around for 5 years, which is a long time for a running back. And then the other things that I noticed was Zeke is no longer with his team. Saquon was franchise tagged, so we'll see how long he lasts there. Miles Sanders was not with his team that drafted him. Montgomery's not with the team that drafted him anymore. Donta Foreman, Leonard Fournette, CMC, like all these guys are not even with the teams that drafted him. Right. So, and those were a first rounder, right? A first rounder. Like all these first round draft picks are just not with the teams that drafted them either. Yeah. So not only are we looking at an average of a mid third round pick for most starting running backs, you're not even drafting someone that's going to stick with you for more than about 3 or 4 years.
Exactly. And like these players, so first of all, like I think that this is important because like what it basically shows is like if you're talking about getting a running back that's going to help you, like you can get a starter where most of the NFL gets their starters somewhere in the second to third rounds, right? And like at those numbers, you're looking at numbers akin to that tweet that we were showing a couple of weeks ago that said Super Bowl winning teams pay somewhere between $500,000 and $2.5 million for their leading rusher in the Super Bowl. Okay, it's just not a position that teams who are winning deep into the playoffs are spending a lot of money on. And like if you look at the teams who have missed on first round running backs, Dallas was Zeke, New York Giants was Saquon, Jacksonville and Leonard Fournette, Carolina and CMC. These are not teams that are like challenging deep into their respective conferences on a playoff time, like Dallas might, right? But that's the only.
I would argue, I'd push back a little bit. I wouldn't say they missed on Saquon, right? Like he was a great player for them.
To what end? I mean, like,
well, I mean, you could say that about a lot of different types of players in different positions, but like I don't think they missed on him. But at the same time, they didn't do things, and he wasn't a difference maker enough to get them playoff victories and Super Bowls.
So Saquon Barkley is the opportunity cost of not taking a tackle, a quarterback, a wide receiver, an edge rusher, or a pass catcher at that position.
Yeah, I just because they didn't win, it's like saying, well, Dan Marino, I mean, you could have done something different. He didn't win you a Super Bowl. You must have missed on him. No, they didn't miss on him. Stafford wasn't a miss by the Lions. He just didn't win a.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. It always ends up back.
No, I'm just like
Stafford. Somehow we go from Saquon Barkley to like opportunity cost to Dan Marino, and all of a sudden it's back to Matthew Stafford. Listen, like ultimately why, like, I would argue it doesn't work out with Saquon Barkley in New York is because what did you spend the second overall pick on? What did you get out of it? What did they get out of it? Yeah,
they got a great running back.
Who cares? Like if you're a Lions fan and you want to have like shitty losing seasons with a great running back, fine. But like that is a missed opportunity for every team on this list that did it to fundamentally get better and have a better savings where they could push to get to the playoffs or a Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl. But they fucked it up because they invested a premium resource in the least valuable position in football outside of a punter and kicker. So, like,
you won't get me arguing that it's not that is not the least valuable position.
I would argue it's not possible for a first round pick running back to be a player that you hit on. How? Like, I would so much rather have some of these other guys in the second or third round and like, okay, I can get James Cook at 60. Well, that's a terrible example, but like I could get Nick Chubb, you know, at the 48th pick, and the number 2 pick could be an edge rusher. Come on.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb is effectively a better running back at everything and has been healthier than Saquon Barkley, right? Like that's the difference is that you can find a guy like Nick Chubb outside of the first round and he can be better than, is Nick Chubb not better than every fucking running back that was drafted in the first round that we've just looked at?
I mean,
dating back to 2011. I mean, like how many second round running backs would be better than every first round drafted running back in the league? Is Derrick Henry?
Yeah,
He's a second rounder.
Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, like all those guys played very, very well. I don't want to take away from like what Christian McCaffrey, Saquon, and Zeke. Like Zeke played well. I mean, he got hurt the last couple of years or whatever, but like his first few years, and that's again, it's also part of that whole thing when we looked at the first round running backs about the number of games missed, right?
Right.
Saquon missed 22 games, which is more than the average, which is still a season. You're still missing a season. And, you know, Ezekiel, he didn't. I mean, Zeke, up until this past year, has been pretty healthy, and he was pretty solid. But like you said, the opportunity cost is where it is.
Right.
So, like, I wouldn't consider them a miss as far as, like, they got a really good running back. The miss was the opportunity cost.
Right.
Right.
And so with the fact that there's so much value to be had on that opportunity cost, you cannot, to me, if you were going to have the discussion with me, anybody, and it's like, well, we really need to draft Bijan Robinson. Fuck you. We're done with this conversation. Like, you cannot do this because the money, the opportunity cost, how long they're on the team, the fact that they're probably going to get hurt because that's what happens to guys at this position. You know, there are so many cons. And what's in the pros column? What's in the pros column? Like Saquon Barkley is the perfect example of this. Like he's okay. So like you think that he's a really great player. Probably lots of people think that he's a really great player. So what? I mean, like this last season was the best season that the Giants have had. He was healthy for virtually all of it, right? I don't remember if he missed the game this year. And they made the playoffs and they lost in the first round. Is that what drafting Saquon Barkley at 2 gets you? Is 1 year in the playoffs and a loss in the first round? That's not worth it.
Right. No,
right?
I get that. I'm just saying, like, as a running back, they were damn good.
Sure.
The big miss was the opportunity cost, not like the fact that they got it.
Best running backs. Like, are we really saying that they're like, oh, like we're this? I mean, pick a team in the NFL. Like you're the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, like, we got to get past the Chiefs and the Bills and fuck, like everybody else in the division. This conference is so tough. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go out there and pay super high money or like invest in a quality first round pick into like drafting a fucking running back. That'll do it. I mean, like, Yeah, it's a component, but like
Yeah.
a first round running back is a luxury pick at the very best.
Yeah. I don't disagree on that. I think we agree on that pretty well.
Okay.
Joey says,
They
I'm
beat
glad
the
to listen to
Vikings?
people who understands opportunity cost and what that cost actually is. Joey, we are the biggest nerds. So yes, we will talk all sorts of nerdy economics like opportunity cost, value.
Zakwa, thank you, Zakwa. They beat the Vikings this year. The Giants beat the Vikings.
So did we.
That's true.
Yeah. Should have been twice.
Mike, we
Yes.
are at an hour.
We are at an hour.
Do you want to go another 30 minutes?
I can go longer. What do the guys in the chat want?
What should we do? What should we do?
I'm good with keeping on going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think, Zakwa? Steve-O, one pride.
One pride is drunk. He says, I say TE is very tight end.
Tight end.
Oh, and that's an L. That's an L. I thought it was a capital I for some reason. Yes, one pride's spot on. Like today, Mel Kiper came out with his like third mock draft or whatever, right? And he has the Lions going Jalen Carter at 6. Sweet. Like, I'm super stoked about that because I think every fucking problem that you have seen with Jalen Carter, I'm super worked up right now. So like every problem that you have seen with Jalen Carter is fixable. And the things that you can't fix about Jalen Carter are things like he's ridiculous as a physical specimen who fits a need the Detroit Lions almost desperately need. And if you're talking about work ethic and the legal shit and all that stuff, like the legal shit is gone. He pled that shit out. Like it's done. So like, that's it. Like it's, oh, look, it's a fine and it's some community service. Who saw that coming? Sorry, I'm going to take credit on this one because it was me. And I said it from the moment I heard the word misdemeanor. But like his pro day, the mistake there with his pro day wasn't that he did poorly. It was that someone let him go out and do it in the first place. That was the fucking problem. Like if you have a problem during the NFL offseason, you don't call attention to it. That's the mistake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where you're like,
he will not be a bust. I will bet $1,000.
Oh, snap. I mean, you're already going to eat a hat, so why not?
Yeah, stupid Kalijah Cansey.
So here's my thought on that as well. My son said something to the effect of,
your son's ridiculous.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Shout out Danny.
Yeah, shout out to Danny. He said, wouldn't it be cool if like the winner of the college football playoff played the worst NFL team?
No, it would not be funny. Let me explain how this will go.
So this is what I told him. I'm like, why would they do that?
Sure.
The NFL team is in a no-win situation. Either A, they beat the just dog crap out of a college team and everybody goes, of course you did. Or they lose.
Right.
In which case it's also bad. So you don't win in any situation for the NFL team.
Oh.
Right? Wait, what?
Nothing. A6 is off his chain in
Let's
the chat.
Go bet it up. Nick Fairley. Okay. Yeah, well, A6 is cute. But yeah, I don't think and I think that same situation sometimes runs into like when a player does something.
3 rounds. Top
3
100.
rounds. Oh, yep. Let's do it. Little bit of randomness, just
yeah. Let's throw a little bit of randomness because you just sometimes you just don't know.
All right. So, by the way, who does everybody think Carolina is going to pick? Is it Bryce or is it Stroud?
They should pick Bryce. They're not going to.
You don't think so? Think they're going to go Stroud?
I think they will go Stroud, but you should pick Bryce.
All right.
Oh, look, they did it.
Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, number 2.
I think that what PFF has done is they've gone back and they've updated their internal draft board. Mike, for whatever reason, we're only seeing like the top 5 picks here. I don't know. It feels like the screen is weird.
Well, you wanted me to zoom in, so
That's
I can
better.
zoom out a little bit.
No, not well.
Right there. How's that?
That's
I like
perfect.
all right. I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I mean those are your words, not mine.
Yeah.
Richardson, Anderson, or I'm sorry, Young, Richardson, Anderson, Stroud, Jalen Carter. That's a real bummer.
Right. So this is the quintessential like worst case scenario for Detroit.
I don't know. I'd just take Will Levis and say yo, personally, but I'm not. I don't think.
So like let's get ready for the incoming of hate from the chat. But
Yeah.
like I don't mind that at all. And here's why. When are the Lions picking this high again?
Hopefully not for a long damn time.
Right. So let's look real quick before we move on and make this pick.
Yeah.
Let's figure out where, if you're going to have to take a shot at somebody, we'll talk about that in a second, one pride, I promise. If you're gonna have to take a shot, we know that like, so we've seen the Lamar Jackson situation, right? Like he's the best quarterback to make it this close to the open market in a long time. So they probably aren't going to trade for Lamar Jackson, right? We don't anticipate with the free agent signing and the fact that we have 8 picks in the draft and like, you know, coming off of all this momentum, we don't know when the next time we're going to pick anywhere near this high again, right?
Correct. Yep.
Can't sign one in free agency. So you'd have to trade for one. And if people are resistant for trading for Lamar Jackson, which I don't understand at all, but like, if you're resistant to trading for like Lamar Jackson, you're probably resistant to the next guy that comes up on his contract that wants to get traded, right?
And God forbid, like Aaron Rodgers, they want 2 first rounds for a 40-year-old who may only play a year. Like that's the kind of shit that you have to do to actually trade for a top flight quarterback.
Right. But I mean, also look at what like the Niners did to draft Trey Lance, what the Broncos did to acquire Russell Wilson, what Cleveland did to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to be the next version of that to go out and get an established quarterback? Like, I understand that people may not be in love with Will Levis.
Right.
But like, you might just have to take the shot because you are either going to have to do something like what San Francisco did to move up to 3 to take the third quarterback off the board. We saw what Carolina had to give up to go from 9 to 1. Right?
Yeah.
Or you just take a shot now, or you have to extend Goff. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like this will become a Baltimore Ravens podcast if I have to go through like 3 years of Jared Goff. So like, I can't do it, you know. So let's look at some trades. So yeah, so like all you're gonna get out of Atlanta is like the 44th pick and maybe like a late rounder, because this mock simulator won't give up what it's actually going to be worth, right? See, that's just going to make it worse, right? So like if you take 110 away, you're going to pick up, this is the opportunity cost again, right? So like if you look historically, trading into the top 5 for a quarterback historically not worked out for the teams that have traded up.
Yep.
Okay. So like this is pick 6, you know, but like Josh Allen, 7th pick in the draft. Patrick Mahomes, 10th pick in the draft. Deshaun Watson wasn't a top 5 pick, you know, and like you can argue he's not worked out or whatever, but like tight end is more valuable than running back. Running back's the least valuable position in football. But like I think you take Will Levis here just for the like shits and giggles, like not shits and giggles, but like you have to take a chance.
And I think it's going to upgrade our team sooner rather than later, too.
I mean, and like if he, like, okay, think about this. Everybody, like, if you don't like Will Levis, that's fine. But like, think about this: if Will Levis or quarterback X or whoever's here hits, the Lions have a Super Bowl window for 5 years.
At least 5 years.
Right? If they took a quarterback in this spot, no matter if it's any one of these 4 guys, and that guy hits in Detroit with this roster, you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, you have a Super Bowl window. We're not talking about winning a first round playoff game for the first time in 30 years. You're talking about being able to go to the Super Bowl.
Which is why I said, like, if there's a quarterback there, I would personally take it, regardless of whether Young's not going to get there. I don't think Stroud will get there either. I could see Levis or Richardson both being there in different scenarios. I would take either one of those.
Yeah, let's just draft Will Levis.
We're going to take Will Levis.
They're going to get mad, but we're going to take Will Levis.
So, Dr. Detroit, the doc says, all right,
Hooray.
So 100% right here. He says, I hate this scenario. Trade up to 3 and get AR-15 or Anderson. I would love to have traded up to number 3 to get Will Anderson. I wouldn't have traded up to get a quarterback. But
it is not worth it to trade up for a non-quarterback.
That is, yes. But that's like, if I was going to trade up, that's what I would do.
This is not an F. You're crazy.
Got to go.
Right. He's got to go. That's a bummer, but it's not enough.
Oh, off its rocker. Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, off its rocker. Take Witherspoon.
So Devin Witherspoon somehow lands to us at 8. What the hell? I mean, okay. Porter goes at 9. Gonzalez at 8. All right, let's do it. I mean, that's kind of the no-brainer, right?
I would imagine. Not Cansey. Cansey should be an edge. He's not a defensive tackle. 6'1", 280. He's an edge. He wins with speed. If all lineman gets his hands on him, he can't get off the block. I mean, that's
all right. So we've got ourselves a cornerback to deepen that room.
Let's
we've got
see
ourselves a quarterback.
Let's see if Darnell Washington is available.
I thought I saw him go.
You don't know what you saw.
I don't know what I saw. What's his rank? Oh, there. Yeah, his average draft position is 50.
That's ridiculous. Well, they moved him way down.
His rank was 51. Yeah, so
I would like Anthony Richardson as well, Dr. Detroit. Like I'm on that train as well, but in this mock he wasn't there at 3. I don't think, right?
Correct. He was
he went 2 to Houston.
He went 2 to Houston. Yep.
Yes, he's a big DE. The Joey's point on, spot on again. Yeah, take Washington for me, will you? I think you could take Henley here. Well, I mean, like, okay, hang on. They signed Anzalone to a 3-year deal. At least
it's cheap, and we can probably. I think it's not fully guaranteed.
That's such a relative, like cheap for Anzalone. He's like it's too much money for who he is as a player.
Yeah.
So like even if it's like cheap relatively to other starting linebackers, it's an overpay.
Still overpay, yeah.
Is. I don't like Cansey. He's 6'1".
Henley?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, like, I don't know when he's ever going to play. So we signed Graham Glasgow, right? Like, he's going to be the backup interior offensive lineman. I mean, Matt Bergeron's on the board. Like, this might be the time that the Lions. Well, let's think outside the box here. This is the 55th pick in the draft. Who can you trade this for right now?
Well, let's go see what we got here.
No. Like, not picks.
Yeah. Like, which player could you trade him for?
We're not going to trade for Derrick Henry, right? Like,
no.
Let me ask you a question, everybody. Let me just throw out just an insane idea. The Rams really going to keep Aaron Donald?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Why?
So, because he is probably the greatest defensive player of all time, or in the conversation to be one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Sure,
and he's still one of the most dominant players in the NFL. So, like, Les Snead, as much as I enjoyed his F them picks attitude and using those draft picks to find the pinholes to improve their team, they're also at that point where they're like, okay, we can't do that anymore. We can only have so many high paid players on our team that we can afford. We kind of talked about that really early on. I'm building my team around Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald.
Okay, let's move on from Aaron Donald.
So
I agree. What about DeAndre Hopkins? For whatever reason, at this point, they're in the draft. They haven't been able to re-sign DJ Chark. Would you trade the 55th pick for DeAndre Hopkins? He's an X.
yeah, what's his cap hit though?
It's enormous.
Yeah, I'd probably not.
I'll look it up.
Like I'd probably just rather have Nathaniel Dell if I was going to try to get another wide receiver.
He's 5'8".
So he'd be the slot guy.
Wait, but that another slot guy? Plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would. I wouldn't want that. I mean, I would like him, but only if he came at half the price.
Like, so if you trade before June 1st, his cap, they're going to split the cost with you, something like that. He'll probably cost $15 million.
What about a guy like what if we were to draft a guy like Eli Ricks?
Fine.
But
like, you've already drafted Devin Witherspoon. So let's assume. So are you going to carry? How many cornerbacks would we have on? We would have Sutton, Okudah, Mosley, Jacobs, Lucas, Witherspoon.
So
are you going to carry 7 corners?
Let me pause and back up a second. I saw Ricks, but I saw the halfback. I was thinking taking a running back at this spot because we were talking about how most of the starting running backs are second and third rounders. And I saw these two side by side, but didn't realize they were different people. What if we were to take a guy like Zach Charbonnet?
So I would say that he's redundant to what Montgomery does, and then you would have Charbonnet, Swift, and Montgomery all on the same team for 1 year. It's that pick if you're 100% certain that DeAndre Swift is gone, and then he's your third running back.
Yeah.
See, like, this is why the mock draft gets so much more difficult. Scroll down a little bit. Keep scrolling down. There's so like Sidney Brown at safety is someone I think they could go with. Keanu Benton. Rashee Rice would be an X wide receiver. No, that's not what he was saying.
So here's another thought. We've got a couple tackles in this area.
He's also a guard.
Okay, we need one of those as well. You've got Decker, who's got 2 years left on his contract. I don't think either of them are guaranteed. Maybe this next year is, or one of the two. But is it one of those things where we let him go, replace him, and pull a tackle like Bergeron?
Or well, I think that you could. I think that you could draft a guy like Bergeron and have him be like, okay, you're effectively a backup, get a year in the weight room, and then like let's reassess. Like, I don't know, like they're gonna have to do something with their cap and get pretty creative because if you're not going to move off Jared Goff's money, you're going to have to start signing guys. Like, are you going to re-sign Jonah Jackson? I don't know. I would argue no. But and
that's where I'm wondering if that's just a better pick.
Sure, let's do it.
All right.
So I know that a lot of people in chat are probably not thrilled with the way this mock is going, but like I think what's important about doing stuff like this, take Rashee Rice.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Is that we have had a thought process, a pattern in mind ever since the season ended about what the Detroit Lions could do. Cody Mock might not be terrible. They do run a zone scheme, right? So, like, what the Lions could potentially do without knowing what they were going to do in free agency, right? So we were plugging holes with our mocks that probably have gotten filled now, right? Like if Detroit has to go out and play a game tomorrow, they are they have got somebody that they can handle all of those spots.
Right.
So like if you're someone who subscribes to like best player available, it might be something more like this, which is weird. So like, but imagine the Lions did this. You have Jared Goff, Will Levis is your backup. You've got Devin Witherspoon, and he's going to be a backup for a year. But like, if you let Okudah go and you let Mosley go, then you have Sutton and Witherspoon in 2024 as your starting corners. Darnell Washington is like your sixth offensive lineman. He does all the other things that they want their tight ends to do. Bergeron is a backup interior offensive lineman. If there's an injury to somebody like Decker, who has had injury problems, you can slide him in, or if you wanted to, like, say, move Sewell to the left, and put Bergeron on the right, you could do that as well. And Rashee Rice fits that X wide receiver position. He is a contested ball catcher. That's something the Lions don't exactly have right now. So it's like, through the top 100 picks, if the Lions came out of it with something like this, not only do you have, like, I think this is the first year that you could see them drafting the next generation of the team, right? Like, it's like, these are the guys that are probably going to be around.
So here's the interesting thing to me. Going into this draft, everybody's like, fuck the offense. We need to just I'm fine with an entire draft full of defense.
Right.
And off season, we pick up a couple cornerbacks. Our defensive backs just got significantly better, right? Like, we shored up quite a bit on the defense. So even though we kind of went in early, before free agency going, we just have to draft defense the whole way, man, and just go with it. As we go through this, you're like, hell, we've only got one defender on the entire, top 100. We got 5 picks in the top 100. We got one guy on defense, mainly because I think we've done a damn good job in free agency and not needing to spend some of those picks on defense.
Quentin Cephas doesn't play football, Joey. I don't know if you're aware of this, but like,
what?
Well, I mean, like, he's effectively unavailable whenever he is required to go out there and actually play football.
Yes.
So I mean, like, he's on the roster, but I mean, if you wanted to put me on the Detroit Lions roster, I play about as much as Quentin Cephas does. So I mean, like, you're right. I think the upside of Rashee Rice is that he might actually, play football. So, and like, if like Quentin Cephas is at best the 5th wide receiver on this team. So I don't know that you're losing anything by moving on from Quentin Cephas and getting Rice on a 4-year deal.
And it might be something you can get a 5th or a 6th for him too.
Trade the 18th pick for a star player on day 1 of the draft. Okay, who? I'm happy to do it. Tell me who it is.
Jalen. Oh, balls. Never mind.
Right. Don't. That's a fresh wound. Okay, too soon.
I know. It is too soon.
I still would have loved to have Jalen Carter on this team. Not Jalen Carter, Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, both of them. Jalen and Jalen would have been a great defense pairing.
A lot of Jalen's I was hoping for this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I don't mind. So, like, the other thing that they could do is, like, say Miami wants to get in on this draft. If you say they're Cincinnati Bengals are not trading T. Higgins. Like, I appreciate the suggestion, but, like, there is no reason for them to move on from Higgins right now. They're going to use up his 4th year. But, like, if Miami or one of the teams that doesn't have a first-round pick wanted back in this class, and you're like, we'll give you the 18th pick, but I want your first-rounder next year.
Yeah, Steve was saying, like, a difference maker that might be available.
I agree. Like, and that is Brad Holmes' job to find one, but, like, that is an assumption that one is available. So here's another fun idea. Go trade for Lamar Jackson. Sorry. I mean, like, yeah, trade for Lamar Jackson. Like, trade for Lamar Jackson. Figure out the money. Like, do the work. You have between now, Jeffrey Simmons is a good example. You have between now and the draft. If the Lions were to work out a contract, you have what? 5 weeks? Like, No one did. It's a great example, but like, but like my point is still valid. Like the assumption is that one will be available.
Yeah. And there's going to be a AJ Brown type of thing.
Don, he's tagged.
Whether it
he's going to
happens.
cost you he's going to cost you the 18th pick this year and your first rounder next year. That's it. And then the contract. Now, if he was on the open market or they had him in season not playing on the tag, yeah, you're right. It would cost you. You can't trade 4 picks, but like 4 first round picks, right? Like you'd have to have those 4 first round picks inside of 3 years. But like trade the 18th pick.
Don. Okay. We may not allow Don back.
That was terrible. So Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I would trade a lot for Justin Jefferson. He's amazing. But he's gonna I wouldn't be surprised if he's like $30 million a year, the first $30 million a year non-quarterback, right? We haven't had a $30 million non-quarterback, right? TJ Watt's the top edge rusher, and he's at like 28, and then like no cornerbacks reach that, no tackles reach that.
What about didn't Devontae Adams hit 30?
No. He might have hit 29. I'm right there. Hang on one second.
I guess the other thing I wanted to ask about
Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
And that's not really what his contract is.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention, I know we've got about 4 minutes before we hit the 8:30 mark, but what about the possibility of trading a guy like Decker? You're freeing up cap space, and so you can take a tackle, and maybe earlier than number 55. Maybe that's a tackle we take at 18, assuming that trade happens before or during the draft. But just like they were talking about, Steve-O was talking about, like, who knew AJ Brown was on the trading block? Is that something maybe we do? We free up a bunch of cap space, we draft his replacement, or we move Sewell over and we draft Sewell's replacement, however you want to put it. But like, I could see that being a scenario that goes down.
So 2 things. First of all, I would say that's fine. If you're like, say you traded Decker for like a future something, and then you wanted to move Sewell to the left or even keep Sewell on the right, and then like at 18 you took Darnell Wright or one like the 4th or 5th tackle off the board, something like that.
A couple of them that all go. I mean, granted, they all went in this particular mock before 18.
Do the go down more.
Anton Harrison.
See, he could do it.
DeWand Jones.
So like, where did Darnell Wright go? There he is.
Yeah, he went in 2nd round.
So like Steve-O makes a point right here. Like, I just think they need to walk with 2 or 3 really good players as opposed to 8 players that are okay. I would argue just the opposite, right? Like, I would say, like, I see the validity in that approach, right? Like, I see the idea like behind that and like the wheels turning, and like 2 or 3 really good players, hard to turn down, not gonna lie, but like, let's think about like what he's saying, right? If you had 2 or 3 really good players and you didn't have the 5 other okay to above average players, those 3 players have to make up for a lot, right? And so like, I would argue that we might have those players on the roster currently. And if like you're not trying to raise the ceiling of the team with 2 or 3 really good players, instead you raise the floor by putting in, let's be honest, some of them are going to be misses, 5 or 6 pretty good players. I think that the Lions are a 10 or 11 win team.
I'm actually with Steve-O on this one. Like, I see where you're coming from.
I know you are.
No, I see where you're coming from, but I think we're also, our roster, like last year, I would have been totally on that train. Mm-hmm. But I think with the last 2 draft classes with Holmes, the free agency class that we just had, I think we're actually at the point where we don't need to go wide at okay. We really need to get 2 or 3 really good players that could really, really excel, because we have the okay ones. Like we can do okay. We've got a lot of okays in there. We need some excellence, and I think that's probably what Steve-O was talking about. Was all
I
right.
agree.
You know what I'm saying? So like I see where he's coming from, and I would probably lean just a touch more towards Steve-O in that theory, only because of how good our free agent market has been. Our free agency class this year has been. 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said that. I would have been on the other route, like with you.
I would rather hit 2 doubles than 1 home run.
I don't think that applies here.
I
only
do,
because Steve-O, like, and actually the other thing I was thinking about as I was talking, and then it just popped out of my head. But Steve-O was like, "Hey, here's the thing: how many open roster spots do we have left
this year?" That thinking only applies to this year.
Sure, but like we can also fill those other roster spots next year with cheap, mediocre people as well, right? On free agency or draft. Like, I think if we get really good, if we can get like 3 top-notch dudes, that's 3 out of 22 players that are excellent, like, starters, right? And we've already got excellent guys like, Hutch and some of those guys like Amon-Ra, St. Brown. We've got okay across the board at this point.
I disagree.
You do? So like,
yes. So I agree.
Offensive line. Is there anybody that's not at least pretty good on our offensive line?
Is Vaitai healthy? Are you going to re-sign Jonah Jackson?
Well, we've got him for this year.
Like, and you also need backups, right? So they signed Graham Glasgow, so you have 1.
Yep. He'll be the starter. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter.
Okay, then you have no depth on the offensive line, right? Are you going to go with Don Skipper again? Tommy Kramer's back is fucked, right? Like, he's in the same position as Vaitai. So like, you have your starters with no safety net behind you if Graham Glasgow is the starter at right guard.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the reason that you draft people is so that you have them on the team for more than 2 or 3 years. We just signed a bunch of guys in free agency, right? Sutton and Zaloni are multi-year deals. We talked about this. Like, next year, Okuda might not be on the team. Johnson might not be on the team. Mosley may not be on the team. Swift may not be on the team. Like, the roster turnover is real. And like, you just saw like what he did. Brad Holmes signed these guys to mostly 1-year prove-it deals with a couple of 3-year deals on there.
Yep.
So like, the draft picks that we just did in the 5 picks here are all 4-year deals or potentially 5-year deals.
Yep.
Okay. Now you don't have to worry about turning over a proportion of the roster every year because you have drafted those guys and they're cheap as fuck.
Yeah.
So like, the other thing that should be considered when we have a class with 8 picks in it is that like, this is the future savings. This is how you burn void years off the back end of the contracts. This is how you set yourself up to develop guys. That's why I want why I want all 8 players or whatever, as opposed to just 2 or 3, because as we saw with the Rams, like, if you go all in on just your starters or like core players, and a couple of them happen to get hurt, that's the season. Don't want that to happen, and like,
no, I get that.
You can't afford to lose Jared Goff, but like, if you have a 4th wide receiver that's worth a shit, not Quentin Cephas, and like Amon-Ra St. Brown gets hurt, you have a guy that can come in and be 75% of Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's not bad. So like,
I think I'd rather have 3 triples and 5 singles than like 7 doubles in a single.
I'll just take 8 doubles. Sorry. That seems fine to me. And like, one of the enormous problems this team has had to overcome through the Millen era, the Mayhew era, and the Quinn era is that they had no depth. Well, here's your opportunity. Like Mark's like, trade down. Okay, neat. I think that's a great idea. If the idea is you're going to draft cheap ass 4-year players that are going to be effectively your backups with the upside that some of them could be a starter, in 2 1 or 2 years down the line. And it gives you more flexibility. It gives you opportunities in contract negotiations that you wouldn't otherwise overall have, because you're like, we're good. Go explore free agency. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I know everybody wants really good players. Me too. There's also no reason why the players that you draft, if you have 8 chances to get 2 or 3 really good players, it's usually better than 2 or 3 chances to get 2 or 3 really good players.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right.
So like, it doesn't make any sense to me to like, the goal is going to be just to go out and get 2 or 3 really good players when you have multiple swings of the bat.
I think he just means like, of the 8 that we draft, we really want at least 2 or 3 of them to be good hits.
I don't see why that wouldn't already happen.
Because I mean, you already talked about the Millen era, the Quinn era, and how that just
like,
didn't
we're
happen.
not in any of those eras, right?
I know, but like
that's
true. But like, he's done exceptionally well in his first 2 years,
right?
And is this year the year that we kind of come back to the mean, right? That average of, all right, instead of hitting on 4 people, we're going to hit on 2, like most every other draft class does on average, kind of thing.
Absolutely draft a quarterback, and we're not going to have that Woodward sports shit here, like the cocaine nonsense. I like Adam fine, but like, that's just ridiculous. So yeah, I completely disagree. Like, I think that like, you have the picks, you should only, like, I don't want to trade up. Trading up is usually for suckers. And like, I would rather continue to get the value, and I would rather continue. I mean, like, do you want Derek Barnes on the roster, really?
No.
I mean, sorry, Chase Lucas, but like, do you want Chase Lucas on the roster? I mean, like, you have the opportunity now with these picks to upgrade over, I don't know, maybe the bottom 20 players on the roster, and if like the bottom 20 players become like, ooh, well, they're kind of pushing the starters for playing time or whatever. Great. That team is just better.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper. And you might still get what you wanted anyways. So I don't understand the thinking.
No, I like I said, I think his thought was it's we want a minimum of 2 to 3 good hits and
take more chances at it. That's the only way you're going to get it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree on that.
But like, so what does that assume then? So like, that line of thinking, does that assume then that like, if a really good player was available at the Lions pick, they wouldn't take him?
No, I think it's really just questioning like what historically, and again, we're not in these eras, but like historically, our evaluation has not been good. Our college player evaluation, and we've taken a bunch of duds. And to be honest, like, the draft is still a crapshoot just in general, right? Most teams you have 7 picks, right? You got 1 per round is what you're given, and what you do with them, you may end up with more or less. But in the 7 picks, most teams will end up with 1 to 2 starters, 1 to 2 timeshare kind of guys, and a bunch of duds. That's just like on average what a draft ends up with. And what we want is double the starters, double the rotational players, and fewer busts.
Right. So I mean, I don't want them to be busts either.
Right.
But like,
there's going to be some. It's inevitable.
The safety net to busts is having more shots at adding guys to your roster.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And like, so like one more thing about BPA. If anybody out there is like, don't draft Jalen Carter, like, go best player available, that's who Jalen Carter is.
Yeah.
That's who Jalen Carter is. Like, you can't exclude a guy because it's like, I didn't like his pro day or whatever, or what have you. Like, I get it. Like, everyone should ace their pro days, right? There's literally no pressure.
Well, unless you're in the middle of a media firestorm, right?
You
like,
control the whole thing. You control the entire thing. Like, there's no reason for it to go awry. Like, it's just it's a red flag for sure.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch his tape, and then you're like, this guy was gassed at his pro day, but you get that guy that's on tape, no one would be like, no, we can't draft him.
Yeah.
Remember, The dude was the best player on the best defense for 2 years in college football. And like, he's at arguably the greatest position of need that we have on the team. So,
Yep.
I mean, like, and I don't believe in best player available because I think it's this half-ass philosophy that it's just like, really what I want is to draft the players that I like, and I'm just going to call them the best players on the board. Yuck, yuck. But like, that's bullshit. You know, like, if that was the case and best player available is really a thing, you'd have people drafting quarterbacks when they already had established quarterbacks, and you would have Bijan Robinson as like the 3rd pick in the draft.
Right.
You know, for a team that doesn't need a running back that has greater needs. Like, it just is ridiculous. So, like, you have to factor in position when it comes to like what you're going to take. And like, I don't care that the Lions, I don't give a shit about any of the guys that they signed in free agency when it comes to the draft, because the majority of them won't be on the team next year. So like, this is an opportunity for you to say, cool, we have Emmanuel Mosley, but we're also going to bring in Devin Witherspoon. Cool, we have Alex Anzalone, but we're also going to bring in DeMarvion Overshown. Cool, we re-signed Isaiah Buggs. Jalen Carter was there at 6. Neat, we have Jared Goff, but Anthony Richardson happened to be on the board at 6. Whatever. Right. You know, like, this is the time to do that. It's not a completed need. It's a Band-Aid for the gaping wound that was there before free agency hit. So let's get some longer. I mean, like, let's be smart about this. Like,
so question for you on trading up then.
Sure. Can I have a caveat before we begin?
Yes.
In the first round. And to be honest, really probably only in the top 15. Outside of
not
that,
trading up.
Yeah. Outside of that, I really don't mind nearly as much. You want to know why? The price goes way down.
Yeah.
Now, please continue.
Yeah. So as we're thinking about trading up and when you should and when you shouldn't, as you kind of threw the caveats out there, one of the things to consider is when Brad Holmes or Brad Gnomes.
Oh, there he is.
I know. Good to see you, Brad. When they've got their big board, right? They're going to have their overall board. They're going to have their needs. They're going to have all these different Venn diagrams of like scenarios and shit.
Mm-hmm.
When they have that big board and they've got somebody at 9, we've already picked at 6. We got somebody in our top 6, right? And man, we're at pick 8, coming to pick, say, 15, and our number 9 guys up there. It's a big need, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
I think what you have to do, and I'm assuming what he does, and the same reason why he probably moved up to get Jameson Williams, is he's like, okay, this guy we've got at 9, we're gonna try to trade up to 14. So we're really getting the 9th pick, but we're only giving up stuff for the 14th in their mind. So they're willing to give up a little bit more on the value and have it be that 1.7 points per pick or whatever, and give up that extra, because we're not just getting the 14th, we're actually getting the 9th, right? We're getting our 9th, like our 9th best player on our board. But we only have to move up as though he's the 14th best. And I think that's part of where some of those internal like math, like when do we move up, when do we not?
Sure. Mark, it's not for just the hell of it. Like, hey, let's have fun and throw a party and take a quarterback at 6. It's the fact that this team is at best going to have to get a new quarterback in 2025 because Jared Goff will be off the roster. Can you guarantee me the Lions will be picking at 6 or higher in any future draft? You can't, because we have no idea.
Right.
So the cost of using the 6th pick, as opposed to having to do something like what San Francisco did to move up and get a quarterback, or what some team might have to do to get Lamar Jackson, which is about the cheapest you could ever get a quarterback like that, I might add, is so much more than what the 6th overall pick is, that it's almost not funny. It's almost not funny. And so it's not drafting a quarterback at 6 just for the hell of it. It's drafting a quarterback at 6 because this is realistically the cheapest that you're going to have a chance to get the next quarterback on your roster for the foreseeable future.
And widen your window.
Right. And the upside of any quarterback that you draft in the first round is, once again, if that guy hits, you go from we're pushing for a playoff berth this next year to, well, now we have all this money for the next at least 4 seasons that we can use to continue to build the rest of the roster while this competent player at quarterback drives that car, right? Yep. This is what we've heard about for Goff now for like 2 years, is that, oh, he wasn't throwing anybody, or, oh, the defense is bad, or, oh, the rest of the team around him isn't up to snuff. Okay.
It takes him a while to get in sync with his wide receivers.
It depends
that was the thing with like Jameson Williams, right? Oh, well, they haven't had a chance to like get that chemistry.
Right. So Steve-O asked, would you trade up to draft a quarterback? Mike, how about we have that be the topic of our next show?
I like it. All right. So how does that work, Steve-O? We'll
tune in next week.
Tune in next week for the trade up to draft a quarterback episode.
Mark is going to be so upset next week because I'm just going to be like, look at all these amazing options at 6 that are quarterbacks.
So I'm going to be in Florida next week.
You son of a bitch. I'm hearing about this now.
It's spring break. I'm leaving Friday.
You are an adult.
Yes. And I'm going to Florida and sit by the pool and play some golf. I think I should be able to take 90 minutes out of your day to
do our show. Yeah.
I'm bringing my laptop because I can't get away from work even when I'm on vacation. I'm that dedicated.
I don't give a shit if you're working. I want you to do the show with me.
Yes, we'll do the show. I don't know what we're doing on Tuesday. We don't really have a plan for anything, but I'm sure we can do the show.
Oh, pencil me in.
All right. All right. Well, is it about that time?
Yeah, I'm gonna go play Hogwarts Legacy, everybody. So.
Oh, outstanding. Well, as always, catch us Tuesdays, even next Tuesday when I'm gonna be in Florida and not in my little Red Wings man cave. Tuesday at 7.
We'll talk about it next week, Mark.
Slam those likes, I believe is what Don said, and comment, subscribe. That helps us get the show out there and helps it on the search feeds when you throw comments in and whatnot. So that's awesome.
Is that the algorithm that I hear so much about?
That is that's part of the algorithm is
nice.
Quantity of comments, number of likes, and other subscribers, all that jazz. So keep that coming. We appreciate that. Email questions to casualgmpodcast@gmail.com or send us a note on Twitter at casualgmpodcast.
Yeah, we're right. That's a lot of stuff.
It's pretty consistent on the whole Casual GM podcast piece.
We don't want you searching for a bunch of different words. So
yes, yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah.
So all right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, Drew. It's good to talk. Go Hogwarts.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, see you guys.